people, but 700 beekeepers, and not a single one reported having any symptoms. Some of them tested positive or have been near COVID positive people. But in this article or this letter to the editor, they noted that none of those beekeepers had experienced any sort of overt symptoms to the disease. And so they wanted to see if there is some interaction between the bee venom and it boosting your immune response so that you're better able to fight off the COVID infections. So there's a really cool line of research that is starting to look at that connection between bee venom and SARS-2 and COVID. And I know there's already a lot of research that is being done on human health of the apitoxins and the venom and how they are used in HIV research and other autoimmune disease research. So there's some interesting studies there. I'm not really well read up on that area for the human health aspect, but yeah, Sheldon brought that up to us last week, and yeah, I looked into it. There's not a whole lot there, but there is this interesting observation. It would be nice to send out a survey to all of our beekeepers and see if there has been any beekeepers with any reported symptoms. It's a small sample size, but yeah, it was pretty widespread infection. So
that might be something interesting to ask on that Friendly Beekeepers Iowa Facebook page.
Yeah.
Andy or Randall, Charlotte wants to know what a 1 pound or 2 pound honey bottle goes for in Iowa.
Oh, Andy could answer better than I could.
Yeah, so I saw mine. I'm probably on the low end, and I know there's another guy kind of in my area that is in the $5 to $6 range, and then in the Des Moines area, I think it's more like $8 to $10.
What is it in Nebraska, or wherever this person who's asking the question is?
Charlotte's in Missouri, I believe.
Oh, okay. Well, what is it in Missouri?
Depends.
Yeah, honey does range pretty widely depending on if you're selling it from a farmer's market or from, store or just by word of mouth.
So we're bottling our honey and we're going to put it available on the Iowa State University store. And I think we're going to mark it up quite a bit. I think, because I got online and I looked at UC Davis in California and they sell their UC Davis honey. I think they sell like a 12-ounce bottle or maybe a 12 or 16-ounce bottle. And I think it's like $20 a bottle.
Oof.
Yeah, I know.
That's nuts.
I know.
Are they moving their honey?
They do. They have why is the word escaping me? Monofloral honeys. Yeah. But yeah, I just thought that was crazy. 15 or
Hey, Randall, if you run out of honey, it's selling at $1 a pound. I know where you can get some more.
Okay. Good to know. That would really impress the whole university if, I buy, a few 5-gallon buckets from you just to be like, look how much we made. Pure Iowa honey. Because it wouldn't be a lie. Right now I'm putting together a slideshow because I started here. I'll just share my screen. Can I share my screen, or were we talking about something specific?
Dustin, can you give Randall host power? Then he can share. I think.
I've got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I started pulling honey supers yesterday, and I didn't anticipate this, but the bees started robbing. They went insane. Like I've never seen them before. We had harvested maybe 5 weeks prior, 6 weeks prior, no problems. When I harvested today, not that much robbing going on. Yesterday, if you exposed another hive, they were manic. They were crazy. And so I got some videos of it, because even when I put the lid back on the hive, and before I started harvesting today, I put on entrance reducers on all the hives just to like reduce the amount of robbing that could happen. But this hive specifically right here, they were just going nuts. And when I put the lid back on, they would just crowd and try to jam themselves into the lid, like into the crack, like they were like drug addicts or fiends. And someone was like, "Oh, they were really angry," and I was like, "No, they were just like crazy for honey." And I got some video of it. Let's see if you can see that they're just all balling up at the edge, even though they can't really get in. None of them are getting in because it's on there pretty tight. And in the next video, you can see that they ball up and then they fall down the side. Oh, wait. Oh, I did the same video twice. Or is this a video? Okay, good. They ball up and then they just kind of waterfall down the side, which, Judy, do you have a lot of experience with that? Like,
oh, yeah. I mean, your equipment is beautiful. You've got like nice equipment here because we've got holes in our boxes. So when you close it back up, they don't fall off. They get tagged as easy targets. And we at this time of the year, we'll bring a bucket of water and a big sheet. And then after our inspection, we close it up. We'll throw the wet sheet over the hive for 10 minutes and 15 minutes, and it deters all those robbers from tagging that colony and robbing it out. It's helpful smart when you have a lot of holes in your boxes.
Yeah. Well, and when I came out there today, I checked out this hive, and there was just like a whole bunch of dead bees at the entrance, and a lot of just little flecks of wax. You know, whenever there's been robbing, you know how the wax just gets real flaky.
Yeah, the debris on the bottom board.
Yeah, I really hope that hive is okay. I felt pretty bad.
Yeah, and in some cases, really, really strong hives, if there's a lot of holes and it's been open for a thorough inspection and there's just been a lot of bees recruited to it, then those robbers can slowly wipe out a strong colony. I think there was a couple years where our technicians weren't familiar with the signs of robbing versus they saw a big colony and there was a lot of bees in it, but turns out those bees were just robbing it out. They just had, tagged it, and then over a series of couple weeks, cleaned that colony out.
Well, I hope the entrance reducers can help a little bit. I hope that the stronger hives don't go back. Well, and now that I've pulled a whole bunch of their honey supers, I feel like they've got their own problems to worry about, hopefully.
Plus, your boxes look beautiful, so there's probably not a whole lot of empty holes that they have to, defend.
I mean, the supers are new. The lids are just old lids that we painted to look nice. So, hopefully it holds up. I think in total we pulled 20 supers, each with 10 frames of honey. So it should be pretty good. What's this, Dustin?
We got this question via email this week. So this was their frame of honey, and they were extracting, and they had some dark areas and some black specks in the honey. Does anybody know what this is?
It looks like dirt to me. I mean, they got dirt or something on it that might have been in the comb when they first put it in the hive and the bees put the nectar away.
So they're saying they uncapped it and it looked like this?
Yes.
Yeah, they had dirt in it.
Was it a new foundation or is it an old comb?
Don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it could have been remnants of dirt or, I don't know what that is.
Dirt or dust. They didn't clean it off when they put it in.
I asked Brian Nelson, who's a beekeeper in our area, and because I wondered the same thing. I was wondering if this isn't purple loosestrife honey. Because if the bees forage on purple loosestrife, you'll have junk in your honey. It makes it through both the strainers on your sieve.
Are you saying these are pollen debris?
Yeah.
Possibly. I mean, it does seem kind of odd that there would be dirt incorporated into the honey.
Purple loosestrife?
Noxious weed.
Bees love it though.
Bees love it though, yeah. Anyway, that was one of the questions we got this week.
Interesting. I'm Googling the purple loosestrife. Oh, some people market purple loosestrife honey.
Okay. So this is us in the yard this week. On Tuesday, we had a crew, and we were able to, what did we do on Tuesday? Oh, we were able to inspect 24 colonies, frame to frame, shake 32 nukes, 9 packages, reverse engineer 9 packages, and then moved out an additional 6 hives. So it was a big, busy day for 3 students. So there was quite a lot of chaos in the yard, but it's pretty amazing. I have some really cool pictures from there, but I don't know how to, I'm not sure how to share it all from my phone since I'm not on, oh, yes. Okay, Dustin, did you want to talk about your treatment? This was a cool picture. Oh, I can't switch.
So yeah, we've pulled all of our honey, and we are on our second treatment of Apiguard. So like I talked about last week, we've been putting the Apiguard Pop-Tarts on. And we don't have any spacers built. You know, like typically I'll run like a 2-inch spacer that gives like the Apiguard pack room to fumigate the hive. So we don't have those at the lab, so we've been using empty honey supers, and this is the result of that on one of our really strong colonies.
They do an awesome job not building wax right now. There's only 2 hives that did that upward, but that was a fun little find. And then this one was another thing that we saw in the yard. Does anybody know what that is?
Bald brood.
Bald brood, yeah. Does anybody know what is causing this bald brood? And basically, bald brood is pupae, or bees in their pupal stage without their cappings before they're fully emerged.
It's a hygienic behavior for mites.
Yeah, generally it is, yeah. But this one is in a very particular line. You notice?
Mm-hmm.
It's following a trail. And oftentimes, if you see that, you know, bald brood scattered around the brood area might be an indication of hygienic behavior. They're uncapping and recapping or pulling out mites. But when it's in a line like this, oftentimes the bees are sensing some sort of a critter down underneath the cells. And let me show you what we found trying to escape as we were pulling the pupae out.
A small hive beetle larva. Let me guess.
A wax larva.
Close, Robert.
Yikes.
Yep.
Wax moth.
A big juicy wax moth larva. And there was no signs of wax larvae in any other part of the hive. It's a very strong hive. We only saw this little trail of bald brood. So yep, we found it and pulled it and crushed it. I think there's one more photo I wanted to show. Sorry, you guys are getting to see all these photos, huh? Right. Oh, that was the last. Oh, not that one. That's just lots of messy honey. The other thing I was going to mention was this is a great time when you're splitting up the hives to check the drone brood for mites and any of the other disturbed brood to see if you see a pretty high mite load in your drone brood, especially when they start adding drone brood towards the bottom of the frames and you see them at the top of the bottom box frames. You can pull that open and immediately you can kind of see, oh, this, there's 4 mites right here in this little tiny area of drone brood.
Yeah, today I had some worker brood in a honey super. And I threw the honey super back on a colony first of the week, and I hit that colony today, and it still had capped brood. So I scraped a little bit open, just wondering if maybe it got chilled or something. That wondering if the brood underneath was dead. And I was scraping it back. The worker bees were starting to come out. They were ready to emerge. I just let them out a day earlier, so but I could see something coming out and running around. And I did a few more, and it was mites. I could see mites. I'd uncapped some of that worker brood, and there were mites out running around. So I'm on my treatments, but I think it's going to be one of those falls where the mites are going to be bad. We had a lot of success overwintering, and I think mite loads are going to be higher this fall than they were last.
Yep. And that is very true. It comes cyclically. So a lot of times when you see really high overwintering success, the following season is followed by a pretty massive mite load because you've got a good head start in the spring, and there's plenty of time for those mite populations to kind of grow over the season. But if you're in an area where you had a really bad overwintering kill, and a lot of beekeepers had some losses, then the spring is, actually pretty, you see a lot, the mites having a lot harder time building up as rapidly. But yeah, you do see these patterns of mite loads. And this one's a good one. I mean, this certainly honey flow, brood production, all great things for hive health during the summer, but the mites, they lag, they tend to lag, but they will also follow that peak. So mites are going to go pretty crazy in the next couple months until the bee shut down.
Randall and Judy, Brokaw is working on overwintering 5-frame nukes, both deep and mediums. Any suggestions or tips if anyone's had success with this? Robert's already said feed syrup in late fall. Double nukes work better than singles if you can get a lid with a hole in the top center to put a feeder jar. Those worked well for Robert last year. Do you guys have anything to add?
I've seen colonies overwinter in all sorts of different structures. I think the key is just making sure that what you're overwintering the bees in is the appropriate size for their adult population, and that they have enough stores. So we've had colonies that overwintered in 3 deeps because they're such large colonies. We've had bees that overwintered, in 1 deep, and even a small, tiny top bar hive with 4 frames. So it's surprising, but the bees are quite resilient. I don't know, Dustin, do you have more to add? It depends.
I was going to say the same thing. You got to look at what your bees need and give them the appropriate space to the appropriate amount of food and space to move up. Randall?
I agree. But I've also only ever overwintered bees twice. It wasn't something I ever had to do before coming to Iowa. In Northern California and in Central America, it wasn't an issue. So I'm learning more and more every year. Would you suggest, I guess the question is more about space, right? Rather than other techniques to ensure that they'll have success, like wrapping the nuke or something like that.
Yeah, and all of those things are more related to like the area too. So some places need windbreaks, some people need wraps, some people don't need wraps. Like it, yeah, it's tough. In Minnesota, we didn't need the wraps because the winter was winter and spring was spring and fall was fall. The seasons made sense. But in Nebraska, in our area, we have a lot of these transitional seasons that give really extreme up and down. So in the spring, we've got cold and then warm, and then cold and then warm. So that kind of really rocks the colony's ability to thermoregulate and produce food and thermoregulate, cluster, recluster. It's really hard on the bees over winter. In winter, you know, in Minnesota, there was such a cold winter, they clustered and that was it. They remained clustered until spring. Here, they break cluster, they consume food, then they have to recluster really fast. Sometimes they don't recluster completely into their main cluster. Sometimes they group up into little parts, and those little micro clusters die off because there's not enough worker force to keep them warm. So in some cases, we've seen dead outs where there'll be little pockets of like handful size bees starving on one edge of a comb, and then another comb that has, you know, a handful size of bees. So they're starving in different areas, and that would be indicative of these temperatures that kind of warm up and then drop down, and warm up and then drop down. That's pretty hard on the bees. If that's the case, then I would recommend windbreaks and wraps and extra feed.
And I think location, like you mentioned, you went a different way with what you were talking about with location by different states. But we had what? We had like 30 research hives that we overwintered at one site and 30 research hives that we overwintered at another. And we lost almost all the hives at the first site and lost almost none of the hives at the second site. The difference was the second site had a good windbreak to the north of where the hives were. I don't know how much of, and whereas the other one, they ended up kind of having a bit of a windbreak to the south. So that's something that I know we're interested in making sure that the site that you decide to overwinter at is appropriate. And if you can provide some protection from the cold winter winds, I think that helps a lot too.
Rick asks, would building deeps with 2x lumber work better for overwintering? I would say not really. If you're going to build your own equipment, you have to respect that bee space. If you build them too big or too small, then the bees are going to do some funky stuff with your combs. For me personally, I'm not that great of a wood worker yet. Maybe you are, Rick. Just making sure that you respect the size of the boxes and make sure that they got their 3/8 inch bee space in between the frames and stuff. But
yeah, and I was gonna say I don't know that extra inch wood would give you much of a increase in insulation or R value. I don't know what the specs are on that.
It's the bee space that's really important. I see that violated more than anything else. People don't understand. They're either going to put propolis if it's too small, or they'll put, you know, beeswax.
You also got to realize, Rick, that honey acts as a solar insulator too. So you got plenty of honey in there, and you've helped your bees get ready for winter really well. That the honey will trap that solar energy that's coming through the box and hang on to it for a while, so it acts as good insulation.
Well, and warmth isn't the only factor too, right? Because the bees if they create too much heat, then there could be condensation at the top of the hive that then freezes and then melts and just kind of drowns out your bees. So airflow is another important aspect as well.
I was just going to say that moisture management. Yeah.
So we drill holes in the back end of our hives so that you can get an airflow from the entrance and then as well out the back.
Randall, the other thing I was going to mention was, the logistics of monitoring your hives in the winter, winter feed and getting treatments on, or getting mite tests, mite rolls in. It's complicated by the fact that the winter driving conditions is not always suitable for when the sun is out and warm enough for checking hives. So one thing that we've done to streamline our operation is to bring every hive back. All the out yards are brought back to the main campus, and that way Dustin can monitor those hives more easily. We don't have to worry about flooding. We don't have to worry about roads washed out or icy conditions or just traveling. All the hives are on campus. It's totally overstocked, but it's winter and there's no food anyway. So they have to be fed and they have to be managed. And it's a much easier way for us to start the spring off with their entire inventory, so we can equalize, split, requeen, get our treatments on, and then distribute them back out to the yards. So that I don't know, Dustin, you might want to speak to that, but the logistics of it has simplified some of that.
It's not fun on the days where you got to lift all the hives and bring them home, but it is nice to have them all in one area when it's time to feed, if we need to feed at all. And then to grow on that, it's really nice, since where UNL East Campus is situated, it's in an older part of town. So our spring buildup is really nice because everybody's yard has white Dutch clover and dandelions and early spring perennials. Plus the whole campus is like a giant arboretum. So we have stuff blooming all the time, and the bees just bring it in. And it makes it really nice for us, for our colonies, for buildup, and makes it really easy to equalize. And then in the springtime, if we need to treat, we treat everything, and then we start moving it out to our out yards for research for the summer. We got another question in the chat. I harvested honey from 3 hives last weekend. All the comb was capped, but the moisture was still 19 to 20%. Any thoughts on why the moisture was so high? And is there anything I can do to lower it now that it's been extracted? Want me to take this one?
Yes, you can tell them what we're doing.
Yes, yeah. I want to know this too. I mean, I know part of the answer that I would give, but I want to hear what you think.
Okay. I would say humidity, for a reason why it's still above the 18.7%, even though it's all capped. That, or the bees were just a little off. I don't really have an explanation for it, other than like if they brought it in too fast, too furious, and then just capped it. But the way you can get it. I think
you're right. It's both. It's humidity and rain.
Yeah. The way you can lower it, Travis, is put your buckets in a small room with a heater and a dehumidifier, and stir your honey twice a day. And keep emptying that dehumidifier. The honey will help get the honey really viscous, really thin, and then that dehumidifier will help pull off the moisture off the top, and you just keep stirring your honey in a week or so. If you're doing the heater and the dehumidifier, that should get your moisture down. And if you shoot for 17 and a half, then you'll be just right.
I have a question about that process. Do you think creating more surface area for your honey, like for example, instead of having it in a 5-gallon bucket, having it, maybe in some smaller tubs or something like that, just to create more surface area to evaporate the moisture out? Do you think that would help accelerate that process, or it's just like, or is it not necessary at all?
No, it's absolutely, it'll accelerate it. It's just a lot of labor and cleanup. I think it's more something someone with a small amount of honey would do. But if you've got, lots and lots of buckets to do, The easier thing to do is just open the lids and stir the buckets.
Fair.
You know, I would also make sure that the refractometer was calibrated correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I think that's a really good point.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yep, I agree. That crossed my mind too.
But our honey was pretty high in moisture as well, so it was a good honey year. And because it was a good honey year, that's pretty much because there was a lot of rain, there was a lot of forage, there was a lot of nectar, and the nectar came on strong and it came on quick. So the bees haven't had a whole lot of time to sit there and process that nectar down. But yeah, there was quite a lot of rain throughout the whole summer, not like typical summers where you see rain in June and then July, you know, is dry, August is dry, September's even drier. We've been doing ours for what, 2 weeks now, Dustin? We've been curing our honey for about 2 weeks.
Yeah. And it's
gone from 19, 20% to about 18.
It's, yeah.
So we haven't been stirring it every day.
Another question was, our value of wood is 1.41 inch at best, so don't gain that much for an extra 3/4 inch of wood. Better to wrap the hive with a building wrap or some sort of insulation. Okay, so that's going back to our conversation about wintering. And that was from Mike. And then we got some questions.
There are wraps that are made of corrugated cardboard. And some of them are wax covered or layered, and some are not. And then I've seen people also use tie-back material, which is kind of like the home installation, as cut it out for 4 sides and tape it up. So that's been used as well.
Yeah, so I'm in the Kansas City region. We do not wrap bees down here. It's not a good thing to do. But, you know, you're on the high plains up there.
Yeah, here I wrap in tar paper my older equipment that's got a lot of holes in it, more to stop the wind. And I think the black of the tar paper helps with the solar heat gain on the warm sunny days more so than insulation value.
And Dustin, I guess maybe you could comment on the fact that we don't have the wraps on all winter long. We put them on kind of after our winter checks, kind of when the season is going to start fluctuating, ups and downs.
Yeah, we typically, sometimes winter starts early. Like every once in a while we'll get, you know, snow, you know, Halloween. But we typically don't put the wraps on until after Thanksgiving. We'll do that last cleanup with OA dribble the week of Thanksgiving, and then we'll slip. We have, like Judy was talking about, when Dr. Ellis was managing the lab, he went in with a couple other beekeepers, and I want to say that they had them made. There's a box factory over by Seward. But they're like the wraps that you can buy from the major beekeeping supply companies, where they're just slightly larger than the dimensions of the hive. And once upon a time they were black. They're all white now. They've been well used. But it's corrugated cardboard, and then it's waxed like an apple box, and then we slip those over the hives. And then since we use ratchet straps anyway, the only downside I would say is they don't fit too well with an inner cover, or a telescoping lid, because they're slightly larger than the hive, and it's slightly larger than the telescoping lid. But since we use ratchet straps on all of our hives, we just put the lid on and just ratchet it down nice and tight. But yeah, we put it on after Thanksgiving, and then we take it off in the springtime when it's time to open up bees and get started for the new year. Chris asked, what happens if you if you can the honey with the higher moisture. Chris, do you mean bottle it?
I think that's what they mean.
It can ferment and not in a good way, and it can make people sick. So you need to have.
Yeah, I'm talking about bottling it with a canner.
Yeah. If you if it gets any,
Technically, you can't sell it either if it
Yeah.
exceeds a certain percentage.
it's got to be below that 18.7%. Ideally, you'd want it below 18.
So you really need to test it when you bring it in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brokaw asks, are we still on honey flow or is the flow over, and how do you tell?
Where are you?
They're up in Bo Ellis, Nebraska, Judy, which is north west of Grand Island.
Grand Island is a couple weeks behind us, right?
Yeah.
I mean, ours is about done.
Ours is about done, so you might have another week or so, Brokaw.
The ways that you can tell if you're not familiar is one, look around on the roadside, see how much forage is blooming currently. It does help to kind of recognize a few of the really common bee plants that are good honey plants, you know, sweet clover, goldenrod in the fall, a bunch of asters right now in the fall. And then you can kind of sense how much food is available in the landscape. And then at the hive, you can see how much of the honey is still being brought in. When you tip those frames over, is the honey dripping out onto your pants and onto your clothes? Are bees still coming into the hive readily and really quickly, kind of beelining it out and straight back in? Or do you see a lot of robbing going on? Robbing is a great indication that the land forage is starting to die out and they're starting to look at easier targets.
So that's what I thought too, and I think that's why the robbing that I experienced yesterday took me by surprise, because when we were treating our research hives, we also just put a honey super on because we don't have anything. We want to put the Pop-Tarts at the brood box, right? And so then I would just put a super or a medium there. And again, every single one where I did that, they built in a whole bunch of comb and completely filled it all with honey. And so I was like, well, how come they're not doing this in my honey supers, but they're doing it in the place, like they're doing all the extra effort to build up that comb in just 2 weeks, in 2 weeks, and put all that nectar in there.
Your bees are telling you they want to specialize in comb honey.
Right. Right. So I was like, okay, well then at our site, they had undersowed a lot of crops. It's a research farm, and they'd undersowed a lot of crops with a few different types of clover. And so I've actually gone out and taken some photos of all the pollinators that the clover is attracting, monarchs and bumblebees and everything, and a ton of honeybees. So I just thought with all that clover in bloom, that must have been the continued flow. So I was really taken aback by the robbing that I saw yesterday.
My bees have been crazy still on the Chinese motherwort. I don't know if that's.
I don't know where. I'm
I've got a
right
picture of it. I think
They love that.
it's in the mint family. It's got a square stem.
Yep.
And my bees love it.
I'm just. I guess my biggest concern is the goldenrod coming out. So.
Dirty gym sock honey.
Dirty gym sock honey. Sometimes movie theater popcorn honey. That's
really.
That's what. Maybe it's my nose. I opened up a hive one time and I was like, "This hive smells like popcorn," and everyone else came over and they were like, "No, that's goldenrod. That's disgusting." So.
Like the corn part or the butter part?
Like the butter. Like salty, buttery, savory snack.
Yeah.
Also, I like the Pop-Tarts are catching on, Randall.
People don't like the taste of that goldenrod or even buckwheat or smartweed. A lot of the fall honeys, they don't like that. But, you know, if you are collecting it and you find that your honey has got this strange taste to it, it's not stinky socks honey, it's baking honey or grilling honey. Some of those dark honeys are really good for introducing on, like, you know, ribs. We put honey on the ribs or in baked goods, and the darker honeys are supposed to be higher in antioxidants, so they're, you know, more therapeutic for, I don't know, eating. But yeah, a lot of people complain that they have this distasteful honey and then they feel like they have to throw it away or get rid of it because they don't want to consume it. But there's a lot of different ways that you can use honey, you know, and even if you don't like it, you can put it in your value-added products too.
So last year was the first year that I really, and I'd already pulled my honey supers, that I really noticed my bees bringing in goldenrod. And actually, I was working for the commercial beekeeper a couple days a week, and we really saw it in September. And it really seems like in my area, the bees don't go to the goldenrod until everything else is done. So like this year where the goldenrod's already started, but there's still things like this Chinese motherwort, they're not on the goldenrod, they're on this stuff.
I love how it flowers.
I'm gonna have to keep an eye out for that.
It's kind of a barnyard weed.
How widespread is it?
You see it around a lot of, like, you don't see it in the CRP or anything. It's the weed around the barns and the unmowed spots. It's around the fence posts and the recently disturbed dirt where the neighbor redid their lane, that kind of stuff. And I've got a lot of it on my dam, on the pond dam.
It grows here in Nebraska, Judy.
I don't think I've seen it. It's pretty.
The first year I noticed it, it's like, where is that buzzing coming from? What is it? And it's like, it was bees in that. It was almost swarm-like. I mean, there were that many bees in it.
I love the sounds of the spring trees because of that reason, you know, the chestnuts.
Right, yeah, it's exactly like that.
You hear the buzzing before you notice, anything else. The humming. Yeah, that's cool. I want to see a bunch of bees on this. I wonder what is in the honey. Is it quantity or quality that these bees are going to the plant?
Right.
What is that plant called, and is that honey tasty?
It's Chinese motherwort is what I identified it as. It's got a square stem, so it's in the mint family.
Dustin, what was
and
that
I
spiky weed?
Tell you what.
Oh geez.
The one that created the spicy honey. Somebody came and gave us some honey, and they collected it from a field that was just overridden with this. What is it called? Spur or something?
Was it buffalo burr?
Yes, spur. Yes, buffalo burr. It's low growing. It kind of climbs in the vine on the ground. The bees were working it. I don't know if that was the particular honey or if it was a different honey, but her honey had a spicy aftertone to it. It was very interesting. Has anybody else come across spicy honey? Not introduced, spices, but spicy from just being nectar.
Barb has a question. We'll let people, if they've experienced spicy honey, put it in the chat. I want to make sure to get to Barb's question. How many frames of open brood should I add at a time for a hive with 20, I'm guessing 20 frames, long hive, queenless, but no obvious laying workers yet?
How many of those 20
right,
frames have
Barb?
brood?
I have no worker brood left emerged, and the bees
No,
are mean.
no, and no sealed brood either.
Right, it's all emerged. So
Do you have empty comb?
yes.
Generally, if your colony is got everything except a queen, like you have sealed brood and some larvae still, and a good population, I would say you just need one frame of good eggs and young larvae. But if your colony is completely devoid of brood, that means that even if the queen is taken and accepted, it's still going to be a good few weeks, 3 weeks, before you get new workers. And so all the current existing bees are going to be way too old to really care for the brood that this new queen is going to produce. You're going to have a bunch of forager age bees trying to take care of new queen and her brood. So that's not going to work. So what you have to do is add a few frames with sealed brood and young larvae and eggs so that the colony can rear a queen and restock the adult population with nurse bees to take care of that brood. The number of frames really depends on how many other colonies you have to take from. I would give them a couple of frames of brood and sealed brood and eggs if you have enough to spare. But, I don't know how many other colonies you have to play with.
Does that help, Barb?
Internet connectivity started to answer, but I can watch it.
Add a couple frames of eggs.
And sealed brood.
Okay.
And sealed brood.
Yeah, you need
Both.
the sealed brood
Okay.
there.
So probably
because Go ahead.
replace like 4 to 5 deeps with sealed and open brood. Should I scatter it or should I leave it together in a brood nest?
Put it together in a brood nest.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody know how long ragweed lasts? Mark was asking. He sees it blooming around Omaha. I have no idea, Mark.
I was gonna say where ragweed's wind pollinated, does they even have much benefit for the bees?
No, but I've seen bees working the pollen in
Okay.
kind of landscapes where there was nothing else but ragweed.
The other one that my bees seem to like this time of year are pumpkin and squash blooms also.
Yeah.
Well, you'll see more of that in closer to your part of the state than closer to where I am in Ames. Like the closer you get to like the eastern part of Iowa is where all the squash production is, right? Over in Muscatine.
Yeah, we did a big pumpkin patch down at across the road with probably 200 plants that the bees are on.
Oh, that's
the deer
great.
pretty much decimated it, so I don't know if we'll get any pumpkins, but
Yeah, how did you do with the derecho? Sorry, just really quick second question.
Yeah,
I didn't show up last week because I was still without power, and
yeah, so you missed it. My power came on 2:00 on Friday, so we just got power back in time. We got hammered pretty good. Actually, I went to Cedar Rapids today to help a friend out, and they were worse than we were. It was just absolutely devastating what I saw over there. It was bad.
yeah, it was. My power came back Saturday night, so full 6 days.
Yeah, not fun.
But my bees were fine. Just one hive ended up leaning on the other one. All good.
Right, I got a picture to share. Everybody else saw it last week, but just for you, Randall, I'll share it again.
Share it again, definitely. He'll appreciate this image. So while you're getting ready to share that, for those who are might need extra help with that kind of stuff, I know Andy, you were able to recover your bees, but there is the ELAP program, which is the Emergency Livestock Assistance Program through the Farm Service Agency, and there would be one in every state. So reach out to your county officer if you have beforehand, so that they know you exist and that you have hives, so that if you do have issues with floods, wild winds, and fire, they can help set up an insurance claim for that.
Did you lose any of the hive? I mean, were you able to rescue them, Andy? Or
I only got stung once setting all those back up.
Huh.
I can't believe it. All the bees were in them. They were thankful that I came and stacked things back up. It was amazing.
How many
Oh, the
hives
bees
was that?
appreciated it.
Yeah, so there were 8 on that pad.
Oh, okay. Oof.
Each one of them had 2 honey supers. I'd already pulled off the majority of the honey off that yard. They were already close to 100-pound average 3 weeks ago, and I just had two honey supers on each one of them just to see what I could get in the next 3 weeks. And I pulled those last Sunday, I think, and there was a little bit more honey there, but yeah, they seemed fine.
I think the weight on mine really helped. These were all about 250 pounds.
Right.
300 pounds.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was the only damage we had was the tip. We're really lucky. We really lucked out.
you need to make a meme out of that.
Like, what do you mean?
Like survive the derecho, something like that.
Yeah, I just gotta lean on my neighbors.
leaning tower of, yeah. Cool. Well, we've got 6:03 here. So everybody have a wonderful weekend. And if you've got more questions, pictures, please email us. Randall, did you put the email on the list?
No.
You can reach out to us. You can reach out to Randall. We're around, and bring more questions and pictures. We love hearing from you and seeing how things are going.
Yes, thanks for joining us, everybody.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
And we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.